Anna missed the last call from her brother at 22:41, a Madrid spring night loud with mopeds and terrace laughter. The voicemail was breathless. "I found something in Valencia. If anything happens, check the blue notebook." Then silence, followed by a hollow clank, like a door closing in a concrete stairwell. Diego was not dramatic. He was a municipal inspector with a cautious heart and a habit of listing groceries in alphabetical order. By morning, his phone went straight to voicemail, his apartment in Rizoffa didn't answer the bell, and Anna's stomach performed a slow, practical knot. Anna boarded the First Avenue South, pressing her forehead to the cool window. Olive groves blurred. Her own life, technical translator, rent split with a pianist, a quiet competence, shrunk to the rectangle of the train seat. At Joaquin Sorolla station, the air tasted of diesel and sea. She messaged Diego again. The message ticked forever, undelivered. At the metro turnstiles, a boy's shoulder hit her bag. Reflex flared. She caught his wrist and stared into frightened brown eyes. "Lo siento," he muttered, wriggling free. He didn't take her wallet. He left something, a contactless card in the zipper pocket, blue with a smear of oil. She looked around for the boy and found instead a man with a shaved head watching the exchange, his hands too still for a civilian. Anna slid the card into her shoe. Diego's building in Rizoffa was a neat block with jasmine on balconies. The concierge recognized her and shook her head. He hasn't been home 2 nights. Inside the flat, everything wore Diego's rigorous geometry except the desk, where a rectangle of dust outlined the missing notebook. On the kitchen counter sat a single orange, unpeeled, a knife beside it. She imagined Diego pausing mid-peel at the knock of a stranger. She took the orange and the spare keys and walked to the fire station 2 streets away. The watch commander, a barrel-chested Valencian named Luis, had worked with Diego during inspections. He leaned forward, jaw clenched. "He told me to expect you. What did he find?" Luis gestured toward a map pinned with red pins along the old industrial belt. Warehouses, canning factories, a recycling plant. Arson dressed as accidents. Reports stamped clean. Inspections signed off that never happened. Who signed them? Subcontractors. A company called Levant Segura. New. Sloppy. Until last week, when sloppy became careful. Anna's phone vibrated. An unknown number. A male voice, warm and neutral. "Señorita Vega, you have something of ours. The card. Let's meet." "Who is this?" "A friend of your brother. We'd all like Diego home." Anna ended the call. Luis wrote on a napkin, a tiny anchor symbol. "You'll see this where they meet. It's how they show each other it's safe. But don't go alone." He looked at the orange in her hand and smiled without humor. "Eat. You'll need the sugar." Back in the street, the afternoon heat swelled, that damp coastal weight. A white-seat Leon idled a block down, windows opaque. On the sidewalk, a stencil she'd never noticed most places, but suddenly everywhere, a small blue anchor, crisp and recent. When she turned her head, the seat's indicator blinked. The light pulsed like a calm heartbeat. It began to follow. Anna walked, not rushing, holding the phone like a talisman. She crossed under plane trees, beneath laundry lines curved by the breeze, past a shuttered bar with the anchor sticker on its bell. The white car ghosted behind her at 2 corners, then 3. She ducked into a narrow bookstore that smelled of dust, waited, counted to 50, and exhaled before leaving. Luis insisted on driving. He parked 2 streets from El Cabanyal, where old fishermen's houses still held out against speculation, their tile facades flaking like sunburn. The café was called La Ancla. its sign a blue anchor worn by salt air. Inside, the light was a patient yellow, the clientele mostly older men watching a muted match. A woman behind the bar set down 2 cortados without asking. Honor placed the card on the saucer. The woman turned it over with a fingernail, then slid a tiny packet the size of a postage stamp across. "He said you'd come with a friend," she murmured. "He said he trusted the friend. That was yesterday." Her eyes flicked toward the door. There were men in suits today. They were polite. Outside, the sea breathed a slow tide. In the car, Luis unfolded the packet, a microSD taped inside a folded receipt from a municipal archive. "This is what Diego meant," he said. "Blue notebook, but digital." They drove to his apartment, a neat place decorated with fishing lures and photos of fires so hot the air warped white. Luis slotted the card into a reader and opened a folder called Visitas. Dozens of inspection reports populated the screen. The same signature appeared at the bottom of all, a looping L. When Honor cross-referenced the dates with Diego's calendar, half the visits fell on days he'd been at continuing education in Madrid. "They forged him," she said. Another folder labeled Remises contained spreadsheets of transfers from Levant Segura to shell companies with cheerful names, Playa Feliz, Turin Finance, Santa Rita, and a PDF, Contrato Puerto. Luis whistled. "Containers," he said. "Most of the accidental fires are near rail spurs. They destroy inventory that never existed, collect on insurance, and move something else through the port while everyone's busy." The contract awarded a new safety consultancy at the port to Levant Segura for a pilot program. The signature on the award belonged to a deputy in the regional government. "We need to take this to a journalist before they realize we have it," Honor said. Luis rubbed the back of his neck. "I know someone in Barcelona. Marta. Investigative. Stubborn. She's been looking into port corruption since Barcelona burned those customs warehouses last year." He pulled a battered Nokia from a drawer, the kind without apps, and made a call. Few words, the kind that carried bricks. He hung up. "She'll meet us tomorrow. Sants, noon." Lights passed outside like a slow metronome. Honor scrolled further. An image file. A warehouse at the edge of the Zell, the logistics area, roof patched with bright tar, walls bruised by heat. In a corner of the photo, a mural of a blue anchor. She slept badly on Luis's sofa, the microst under her pillow in a cleaned film canister. Twice she woke to the creak of expanding beams, to the street cat's plaintive anthem, to her own heart outrunning the room. At dawn she peeled Diego's orange over the sink. The smell filled the kitchen, sweet and mineral. She tucked the peel into her pocket and texted her mother nothing substantial. They left Valencia on a mid-morning train. Honor wore a denim jacket, sunglasses, neutral face. Luis carried a small duffel like a man going to a funeral he didn't want to attend. At Joaquin Sorolla, the platform hummed with luggage wheels and the hiss of espresso machines. A tall man with a shaved head leaned by a pillar, pretending to read. His presence existed at a different resolution than everyone else's. "Don't look," Luis said. "He's the one from yesterday." On board, Honor took an aisle seat. The train surged north, Orchard Rose ticking past. She slid the microSD into a second reader plugged into her laptop, fingers steady. The seats across emptied at Quattrotonda, then filled with 2 women discussing a hen party. A message arrived from an unknown number, a single anchor emoji, then a location in Izample, Barcelona, time-stamped 12:05. Luis shut his eyes as if to nap. "Marta will be careful," he said barely above a whisper. "But this is bigger than a story." He opened his eyes and frowned at the reflection in the window. The tall man had moved into their car. He was not reading now. He was looking at their reflections too. "Don't look," Louise said. "He's back." Sound station amplified ordinary sounds until they felt like instructions. Rolling wheels, clipped announcements, footsteps converging like chess pieces. Marta waited by the pharmacy, short hair, brutalist earrings, a journalist's alertness wrapped in a tourist's denim. She hugged Luis, glanced at Honor, and led them toward the taxi queue without slowing. "Phones off. Walk like you're late but not scared," she said. "Who's the shadow?" "Tall, shaved head," Honor said. "Civilian uniform." "Private security or hired cop," Marta replied. "They smell like aftershave and contracts." She pointed to a taxi not first in line. "We take the third. Then we switch." They cut across traffic to Corre de Tarragona, switched taxis near Placa de España, and arrived at a building in Poblenou where the smell of iron and salt came in with the light. Marta's office perched above a bakery, the hum of mixers like white noise. She shut the blinds and plugged Anna's microSD into a computer whose camera was taped. On the wall hung a map of Spain's eastern ports with red thread taut between pins and a single sentence written in marker. "Follow the routine." Marta scrolled, whistling low. "Insurance fraud is the noise. The signal is a supply chain that skips customs. Look." She highlighted invoice numbers that corresponded to containers flagged as empty, but that moved with escorts and were accidentally diverted during drills scheduled by Levant Segura. Every time there's a fire, 3 containers slide through under temporary waivers. The waivers carry the same signature as your brother's forged inspections. Honor tugged her sleeves down. Diego tried to pull the thread. "He did more," Marta said. She opened a messaging app. At the top, a handle with an anchor icon and the name Lola. Your brother was feeding a source inside the port police. Lola. She went quiet 2 days ago. Could Diego be hiding? Luis asked. Marta's face did not answer. Maybe. Or someone is holding him until the pilot program is signed and the waiver system becomes permanent. She printed 2 pages and circled a line with a thick pen. A meeting at the Port Authority at 1800 hours regarding Implementation Phase 2. If we get the deputy's voice admitting the linkage, we can force a delay. We can record him, Anna said, surprising herself with the firmness. Marta nodded. But first we have to draw the shark close. She tapped the desk. We leak a small piece to make them call us. Something that makes them believe we're reachable and stupid. She published a short item on her site within minutes. Anonymous documents suggest anomalies in port safety certifications. A preliminary image of the blue anchor mural accompanied the piece. She pressed the laptop shut. We wait 15 minutes. They didn't make it to 10. The landline rang. A man whose calm was a room temperature invited them to meet at Parc de la Ciutadella, by the bandstand, in 40 minutes. Come alone, Marta, he added. No Guardia Civil. We just want to understand what you have. He hung up with the kindness of a doctor. Marta set down the receiver and grinned in a way that made Anna profoundly uneasy. Good, she said. He's nervous. They went on foot, weaving through Izample like swimmers across lanes. At the park, the lake shone falsely domestic, red boats sliding past ducks with the self-importance of minor officials. Anna's palms prickled. 2 men in linen stood where the grass bent. One held a paper cup. Their skin had the smoothness of people who never waited in lines. Senora Marti, the taller one said. He smiled. The paper cup man gestured with his chin, and 2 more men stepped from behind the bandstand. Luis moved a half step, firefighter instincts translating to geometry. The taller man smiled at Marta. "You brought company." "Not enough to matter," Marta said. She did not step back. "Where is Lola?" He feigned confusion. "Who?" Luis lifted his phone. On the screen, a photo of a shipping container, blue paint scabbed, white letters stenciled large, Lola. Below, a location tag at the Port of Barcelona, Terminal B, time-stamped 5 minutes ago. "They have Lola," Luis repeated. "And whatever's inside." The men didn't hide their surprise fast enough. The shaved-head man appeared with implausible quiet. He stood beside Honor, eyes never leaving the linen duo. He showed an ID badge that flashed only long enough to read the crest. "Guardia Civil." "Señora Vega," he said softly, Spanish sanded to velvet. "Your brother asked us to keep an eye on you. Please don't be brave in public parks." He nodded toward the path. "Let's walk." They walked in a cluster that to an outsider looked like colleagues. In a taxi, the shaved-head man, Serrano, spoke without drama. "Diego is alive. He has been inside Levante Segura for months. He couldn't tell you. The anchor symbol is ours, not theirs. Your little article painted a target on it." He glanced at Marta, whose jaw had set itself into a dangerous line. "Careless." Marta stared at the city sliding by. "Necessary. If I hadn't, they wouldn't have moved the container. They moved it because the deputy is signing Phase 2 at 1800 hours, Serrano said. The container named Lola is a courier. Inside is a hardened drive that mirrors their routing system in real time. If they exfiltrate it or destroy it, the trail goes cold. Honor felt something unlock and drop inside her. Diego used Lola to feed you the data. He used it to feed all of us, Serrano said. Now it's bait. Port security rolled past the taxi like tired muscle. At Terminal B, cranes bowed and rose, vast insect metronomes. The air tasted metallic, a storm brewing where land touched politics. Serrano issued instructions in the low voice of someone who had given many orders and paid for them all. They split, Luis to the fire lane with 2 uniformed port cops who had the anchor tattooed small on their wrists, Marta with a recorder and the microSD, walking toward a glass office where the deputy would preen for the cameras. Men in orange vests moved with the performative casualness of actors in a safety video. Serrano's hand hovered near Anna's elbow, not touching. He stopped at Lola. Fresh scratches scored the lock. "They're inside," he said. He raised his radio. Azul trace. The door of Lola swung with a refrigerated sigh. Inside stood Diego, alive, thinner, eyes red with the sleeplessness of 2 jobs. He stepped down and hugged Honor with an intensity that startled her. "You shouldn't have come," he said into her hair, which was when the first siren unspooled across the port. Orange vests scattered. A forklift lurched, blocking a lane. From the glass office, shouting, Marta's voice into a recorder. The deputy cornered, saying the kind of sentence that builds cases. Temporary waivers are necessary during crises, and if some containers require expedited passage, that's within my discretion. Cameras clicked. Luis ran past with a fire extinguisher, not spraying foam but swinging the metal like a cudgel as a man in linen tried to flee.